Designer Jehanne de Biolley travels to the mountains to study and research the Miao people and expresses her scholarship in a new fashion collection. The Miao are one of 56 ethnic groups in China revered for their craftsmanship and unique ways of living in a modern world. Jehanne, let's talk about Miao embroidery, which in itself is exquisite. How young are the girls when they learn how to sew? And how has generation after generation managed to sustain this art?
About 5 years old is when they start holding the needle and learning some simple stitches. And then it's very much part of a lifestyle, which means it's mother, grandmother, sewing and teaching and inspiring one another. They embroider their own clothing, which can take years to make. It does take years. They then also constantly innovate a little bit on colors so that there is also some element of fashion carrying through this lifestyle from year after year, generation after generation.
Let's talk about the enormous silver headdresses that we see in images and in moving footage. On what occasions are these worn? And practically speaking, in the 21st century, how much of this can actually be used in everyday life?
I thought it was some sort of tourist idea or trap of one type or another. And I was amazed to discover that it is just their lifestyle, their culture. They wear it anytime and every time they can. Women wear the headdresses and the clothing and the embroidery, and men wear silver belts, also some embroidery. But then what's extraordinary is that the sound it makes, it's so beautiful. What's great fun is that if suddenly it starts raining, which it does a lot, everybody goes running for shelter, and then the dingle-dangle is even more impressive. And it is absolutely passionate feeling, and you feel you're part of an extraordinary celebration.
Well, we live at a time when the planet is struggling to survive, a time of fast, disposable and unsustainable living. What's one lesson you think we can take from the Miao people and reapply to our own lives?
Number one is that clothing is valuable, and the way they pass it on from generation to generation, the way they value it, because it is of great, great value. That in itself is an incredible lesson. And the other lesson, which I think is not to be ignored, is that embroidery is actually a very scientific activity, and it combines history, culture, science, and talent. And I think it should be kept on the curriculum of children all over the planet.
We hear so much about Miao women, but what about the Miao men? How do their roles differ and function?
In China, men and women, they are equal. They can do anything they want. It's not just separated. This is for men and this is for women. But saying that, when it comes to the traditional life or traditional lifestyle, men are more involved in playing the musical instruments. They're also involved in building the houses, which is a very important part of the Miao identity. But then the master in the village told me with great pride, he said, we have one of the local villages, there's a very good drummer who's a woman. So they will not separate men and women in the traditional way we do in the West.
Clearly, you're fascinated by these people, but I'm sure they were fascinated by you, traveling through the mountains of southern China.
It occurred to me that for a long time, they had no clue if I was a man or a woman, because it was so cold, the weather was so cold. I always was wearing my little a woolen bonnet, a hat, and with my big nose and my hat, I probably also looked like a man somehow. Anyway, later they took me to one of the houses, the wooden houses, and we sat all women around the fire, took off my bonnet, and suddenly one of the grandmothers looked at me and said a few words in the Miao language. She took off her necklace, put it around my neck after she'd seen my little, gray hair bun, my hair tied up at the top of my head, and then all the women started dressing me up in Miao costumes, as if I was a gigantic doll. And I ended up looking like a Miao princess, like they do. And I just loved it, and we laughed, and it was just such a party. That's when I really thought, truly, until that moment, they did not know if I was a man or a woman. People kept on looking at me, the children, adults, and would come to me, and then they told me they'd never seen a foreigner. And people were so kind, so nice, and I just, I can't wait to go back.
I am sure, Jehanne, that they sensed your humanity and sensed your soul as well. Jehanne de Biolley, thank you very much, and we can't wait to have you back here on the China Current. I'm James Chau, host of the China Current. We thank you for walking on this journey with us. Keep following us there at the China Current.